Oh, it's good to be home. The Mariners scored 18 runs in 2 games. We'll ignore the other one and took 2 of 3 from the defending AL champs, who, quite frankly, didn't look that great, at least offensively. We're going to get into all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Mariners. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Monday, April 18th, 2022, and this is the Locked On Mariners podcast brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered all season long with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. I'm your host, Gonzalez, joined as always by my co-host, Colby Patno. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's DANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPA211. Apologies for the low audio quality today. I had to do this on my laptop. Hopefully we'll have things back to normal tomorrow. In the meantime, be sure to also check out our Patreon, where we talk about the Mariners even more and also get into some non-baseball talk twice a week. Visit patreon.com/Control the Zone for more information on that. If you are interested, and if this is your first time joining us here, welcome to the show. If you like what you hear, give us a follow or subscribe wherever you're listening to this. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, give this video a thumbs up, and tell your friends to come check us out. We greatly appreciate it. So, the Mariners got their 2022 home slate off to a roaring start on Friday with the home opener against the Astros. 11-1 bats lit things up. Marco Gonzalez had a stellar performance, especially coming off of a rough outing in Minnesota where he only went 2 innings. Marco in this one went 7 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 6 strikeouts, no walks. Colby, what did you see out of Marco?
Yeah, it was kind of a vintage Marco in the case that it was just a bulldog appearance. Marco's never going to wow you with stuff, but this time he came out. He threw a lot of strikes. He got ahead early, didn't walk anybody. Was able to find the changeup. That was a critical pitch. We talked about that last week, how he needed the changeup against these righties. It was the second most thrown pitch in this game. He threw it for strikes. He was able to locate it outside of the zone. He induced a ton of weak contact off of that pitch. It was set up nicely by the sinker. And Marco was just able to avoid any kind of hard contact. He only gave up 3 hard hit balls. He was working the corners really, really well. Benefited a little bit from a wider strike zone, particularly off the inside corner to righties. But he took full advantage of it. And continued to pound that location, and then he was out low and away with the changeup, and he got a ton of weak contact as a result. So Marco just kind of doing what Marco does. You know, he goes right after guys when he's feeling good. He goes after guys. He can get guys to expand the zone because of his control. And the changeup was the best we've seen it in a little while. It was just kind of vintage Marco. It's just sinker, changeup, mix the cutter and the curveball in there a little bit. Just to keep guys off balance and just kind of go out there and grit your way through. And he was never really in any danger. It was the 3rd inning or the 4th inning where he gave up a hit and then he hit a batter. But after that, I mean, nothing really even close to doing him in. And even the run he gave up was on a chintzy little single up the middle. He was very good in this outing, and it's a perfect bounce back outing and you know, a good reminder to those who maybe want to jump the shark after one start from Marco Gonzalez. This guy's been your most consistent starter. I mean, he has a longer track record than Robbie Ray, certainly longer than Brash, Flexen, and Gilbert. So, yeah, let's not jump off the deep end here when it comes to Marco. Don't expect this every time out, but this is a lot closer to what you're going to get than the Minnesota start. And honestly, the Minnesota, this is kind of the 2 ends of the spectrum for Marco, what you get. Most of the time, he'll be somewhere in the middle of this. And that's just who he is. He's a really good number 4 and a pretty decent number 3. And when he pitches like this, he can beat anybody. So, you know, let's good reminder not to just give up on guys after one rough outing or after, you know, a bad slow start to the season. Marco was as good as he could possibly be on Friday night.
Yeah, the concerns over his start in Minnesota were overblown. That's you're going to get that kind of Marco maybe 3-4 times a year, maybe. You're also probably going to get this Marco about the same amount of times per year. Marco is typically more of that middle of the road, give you 6-7 innings of 3-run ball, and that's usually what you're going to get. But instead here you got the complete opposite end of the spectrum from where he was in Minnesota. And this was one of his best starts ever in his career against the Astros. This is only the second time in his career that he's allowed fewer than 2 runs in a game to the Astros. And he was on it. And obviously the Astros not at full strength with Yordan Alvarez missing. They've also been struggling to start the season off in general. But this is still a good lineup, one that, competed, that won the American League last year. Obviously lost Carlos Correa, but still just a really deep lineup still. And he handled it well. Now the bats, of course, were kind of overshadowed Marco on this night because the bats pretty quiet on the road for the most part. They still were able to score 4+ runs in multiple games, but still they left a lot on the table in those games as well, especially against mediocre at best pitchers. But they went into this one with a good plan, and they were able to take advantage of a fairly favorable matchup against Jake Odorizzi. Jesse Winker got the scoring started off with an RBI single, and then Adam Frazier may have been the star of the offense. I mean, everyone was kind of clicking in this one. I believe Jared Kelenic was the only starter that didn't record a hit in this game for the Mariners. Adam Frazier, though, 4 for 5 with everything but the home run for the cycle. He got a triple, he got a double, he was hitting into the gap with power. That is something that we not really accustomed to seeing from Adam Frazier in his career, but it was his best game in a Mariners uniform by far. Only 1 home run in this game, too, which I think is kind of notable because considering the fact that they did score 11 runs in this game. Eugenio Suarez in garbage time, pretty much 2-run shot. It was 9-1 at the time. That made it 11-1 for the Mariners. What did you see out of the bats? Who stood out to you the most?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easy answer here is Frazier. 4 for 5. Like you said, a home run shy of the cycle, 4 RBI. Some really surprising pull power. Frazier's not a slap hitter like Nick Madrigal. I mean, he's going to pop, 10 to 12 home runs, but it's just not a big part of his game. And on that cold of a night to drive the gap like that multiple times is pretty good sign from Frazier, who we talked about this. He had a really rough road trip in terms of BABIP luck. He easily should have had 3 or 4 more hits. So Frazier's in a really good spot. Like you mentioned, everybody except for Kelenic got a hit, but Kelenic walked. He had a RBI sac fly, and he had 2 hard hit balls. And Kelenic continues to look a little bit better and better each day. It's should have had a stolen base, but Maldonado is ridiculous. Just perfect throw to get him. Even Kelenic contributed quite a bit here. So Tom Murphy, Mariners catchers. Saturday was, I believe, the first time the Mariners didn't have their catcher reach base, at least in the game. And Cal Raleigh still had more hard hit balls than anybody else in the Mariners lineup against Verlander. So Mariners catchers, they're getting it done. So yeah, top to bottom, it was a really good performance. A couple of encouraging hits from Mitch Haniger, even, who went up the middle a few times, beat the shift, proceeded to strike out in 2 of his other 3 at-bats and on not great game plan approaches, whatever you want to call them. But take what you can get. Jesse Winker had a couple of base knocks, including the first RBI of the game. So, yeah, and then Suarez, like you said, going deep to right center field, just clearing the fence. That is incredibly impressive for a right-handed bat, particularly in April in Seattle, to go opposite field like that. Heck, we saw Kelenic hit one that just kind of died. And he's a lefty. That's a pull guy. So
Winker too yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So just really, really good, solid at bats. This game was won and lost on the single stat here. The Mariners struck out 4 times and walked 8 times. Meanwhile, the Astros, they walked a grand total of 0 times and they struck out 8 times. Mariners controlled the zone, right? They dominated the zone, which is not only the name of a great podcast, but their offensive motto. So they to quote Scott Service, they won the line of scrimmage. They won the strike zone, and it showed. And they've scored at least 1 run in all but 2 innings this time around, which is something I'd been asking for the road trip. Just scored 3 different innings. Well, this time they scored in 6, and they just looked great. It was just top to bottom. It's hard to imagine the offense looking better than that. And like you said, it wasn't that they were just, they hit a couple of 3-run home runs and there you go. It was just consistent, keep the line moving. Everybody had quality at bats. And it just, there's just nothing that the Astros could do. Abreu gave up 2 runs. Baez gave up 3 runs. Blanco gave up 2 runs. Like, they scored on every single pitcher. They hit every pitcher hard. They made every pitcher work. And this is kind of the breakout game that we had talked about last week. It looked like it was coming because the approach was so good. This is what we were kind of expecting at some point. Didn't know if it was going to be on Friday, but it's awesome that it was.
Yeah, for sure. And, like you said, they moved the line. They made Odorizzi work. It was absolutely everything that they needed to do. It was everything that they had, that we were hoping that they would do on this road trip or on that road trip. And now finally came together now that they got back home, and maybe even a little better weather and a roof helped with that effort as well. So we're going to be talking about yesterday's game because, like I said, we're going to ignore Saturday's game. We're just going to forget that ever happened. But real quick, want to remind you, this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by Built Bar. This is the time of year that I've pretty much given up on all of my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. They are low calorie, high protein, so replace your candy bars with these. They are better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories, so go to Built.com and scroll down to the macros chart. You'll be blown away. High protein, low cal, like I said, high fiber, low carb. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. And they also have a ton of amazing flavors for you to choose from, including mint brownie, coconut almond, and white chocolate cookies and cream. And at Built Bar, they are all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, then they figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how, but they pull it off every time. So go to Built.com, try one for yourself, try a bunch for yourself. Use promo code LOCKED15, that's LOCKED15 for 15% off your order. Again, that's LOCKED15 for 15% off your order at Built.com. You're listening to Locked On Mariners. Thank you again for making us your first listen of the day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast, recaps of MLB games with analysis from your local experts, taking fans through the season like no other network. It is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, just like us. So again, let's forget Saturday ever happened, at least the game. We do need to talk about something that did happen on Saturday, though. Mitch Haniger landed on the COVID IL. He will be out for at least he missed Saturday, he missed Sunday. He's going to be out for at least the next 3 games now. And we'll see what happens from there if he's able to, test negative and go through all the protocols for that to get back out on the field. Hopefully he's doing okay at home, feeling okay. Not really sure how that's going on. But Colby, how does this impact the Mariners? I mean, we've already seen it a little bit so far in how they're going to handle it, which is basically Jared Kelenick's going to play in right field. Jesse Winker's going to play in left. Julio's going to be in center, and they're just going to use the DH with Toro or Frazier or Torrens or Murphy or Raleigh, whoever. But if this is more of a long-term thing, if Mitch is going to have to miss more than the 5 days that he has to miss, how does this impact the Mariners down the road?
Yeah, short term, not too much. Long term, it would be a pretty serious blow. And I mean, I believe Mitch is vaccinated, which is why he's allowed to come back as soon as he is. But we don't know how this is going to linger. Suarez went through a tough bout with this, and there were we were told that the recovery from this, even though he didn't miss many games, was harder on him than the recovery from his shoulder injury. So we don't know how these things, how this particular, virus is going to affect Mitch long term. It might not really have any impact on him. So we'll see. But yeah, for now, it's just, Suarez is either DHing or he's playing third. And then the DH is going to be Toro or Torrens. More than likely one of those two. Yeah, so if it's something that lingers for a couple weeks, the Mariners aren't in a great spot in this scenario. Taylor Trammell is hurt right now himself. And if they wanted to add a true outfielder like Billy Hamilton or Steven Souza Jr., they'd have to add them to the 40-man roster and then probably DFA him, whoever they added, shortly after. Neither guy has options left. So if you want to keep those guys around for more of a long-term injury replacement, then it doesn't really make sense to bring them up. So the Mariners are kind of stuck. Kyle Lewis hasn't started rehab games yet. So it's pretty much these three, and then Dylan Moore is kind of your fourth outfielder right now. I don't foresee them going out and panicking and giving Michael Conforto a contract or anything like that. But yeah, just it's unfortunate. But in the short term, there's not a ton of impact, and the Mariners bats looked okay, on Sunday without him. Yeah, you want that bat in the lineup. You want the power that he brings. And if nothing else, he lengthens the lineup. So yeah, it's a blow, but as assuming there's no long-term issues, they're going to be pretty okay in the interim.
Yeah. So let's get into this game now. 7-2 Mariners yesterday. Jose Urquidy was doing all right for the most part for the Astros at first. They weren't really able to get to him much, but there was some hard contact from the Mariners, and finally they broke through. It kind of felt like that was going to happen. So let's start with the bats here, because that's the most exciting thing. We'll talk about Matt Brash, of course, in just a moment. But Ty France, big 3-run home run, opposite field as well. You talked about Suarez, how impressive that was from him. Talk about how impressive that was from France, who is really off to a strong start and making me look pretty good for picking him in our flag week.
Yeah, France. It's funny, you look at France's numbers and you recognize that he had like a 1-for-13 stretch in there, which this early in the season probably should be a major blow to your overall numbers, and it hasn't been, because that's how good France has been aside from that. And that's an incredibly impressive hit. It was a fastball up and away, and he just drove it into right center field. It was a day game, so that does help, but it was impressive nonetheless. He knew he touched it up pretty good. It capped off the big 5-run inning that they kind of just rode to victory. And he continues to hit, and there's a couple things you can really count on. It's that Ty France is going to put up numbers at the end of the year. Not to be outdone, Adam Frazier also had a couple hits. He's got his average all the way up to 256 now after his bad luck induced slump on the road. And Jared Kelenic, a couple hits, including a hustle double. My favorite hit of the day, actually, Jared Kelenick's opposite field hustle double.
Yeah.
Going with the pitch, not trying to do too much.
Yep.
Slaps it into left field with some authority, and is able to leg out the double. He's playing more free. He looks just a little bit looser now. Since the home run, it's really starting to hit the ball a little bit harder. The at-bats are getting progressively better as well. It looks like he's starting to settle in. And, I mean, we can't talk about the Mariners without talking about Julio Rodriguez. We're required to. First career RBI for Julio. Congratulations to him. Just a 1-for-4 day at the plate, but he did have 3 hard hit balls. And his swing looked more controlled than it has at any point. It didn't seem like he was over swinging, which did kind of look like that was the case early. This time he just kind of looked like he was just trying to hit the ball hard instead of trying to hit the ball far. And it appeared to make a difference. So yeah, it's one of those days.
Hardest hit balls on the Mariners, right?
Yes. Yep. He did. Should have had 2 hits. Should have had 2 hits. Was robbed by Altuve in his first at bat. Get the big RBI that kind of got things going. 2-out RBI, by the way. They got things going in the fourth and allowed Frazier to come up, and then France with the big blow after that. Every Mariner except for J.P. Crawford had a hit in this game, but Crawford did walk twice, and he had a great day out in the field, starting I believe 3 double plays in support of Matt Brash, who desperately needed them. So just again, it's one of those days where the Mariners got contributions top to bottom. This time they did get the big 3-run home run. There were some left on base issues, but not that many. And again, you just kind of look at what the Mariners did at the plate here. They only struck out 3 times against the Astros. Meanwhile, Mariners pitchers struck out 10. So again, they won the line of scrimmage, to quote Scott Service. And as a result, they walk away with a really impressive 7-2 victory and a series win over the defending American League champions. It was quite a statement.
Yeah, for sure. And, I'm glad that you mentioned Kelenic and his hustle double, because that was a favorite play in this game of mine as well. And then they did something that you've been asking for a while. They hit a double and then followed that up with another double. Abraham Toro finally got on the board
I know.
with an RBI double. The Abraham Toro revenge series did finally come through. It wasn't off to a great start for Toro, but he was able to make an impact to some degree at a certain point in this game.
Fourth hardest hit ball of the day.
Yeah.
By the way, Julio had 3 of the top 5, including the top 2.
Yep. Yeah, it was a good day for everyone on the board. A lot of loud contact in this game, a lot of loud contact in the first game, not a lot of loud contact against Justin Verlander. We're not going to talk about that. Jesse Winker got robbed of another I thought was going to be a home run, what he thought was going to be a home run, what the catcher thought was going to be a home run, what the home plate umpire thought was going to be a home run, and what Jose Urquidy thought was going to be a home run. And it just died at the wall, into Jose's series glove.
Major League Baseball is definitely doctoring the baseball. They're giving the Mariners the unjuiced balls because
clearly
Kelenic had one like that against Verlander, and it just kind of died out there. But unlike that, this one, it was a day game. There wasn't really any wind to speak of. Like, there was nothing that should have stopped that ball from going out, except for Rob Manfred. I said just pretty much everybody contributed. It's Mariners restart their streak of catchers getting on base. Luis Torrens checked in with a base knock as well. Just up and down, there was contributions up and down the board. Jesse Winker didn't have a hit, but again, you talked about. The poor guy. It
keeps happening to him, and it keeps happening
at least
to Derek
3
Kelenic.
times. Yeah, it's at least 3 times now for Winker. And right now he's also missing some pitches that he's popping up. He's just missing them. So this has just got to be a very frustrating. If anybody needs a day off, it's probably Jesse Winker.
Yeah.
Just to kind of reset, because he's very close to breaking out here, and when he does, the lineup could be something pretty special. This is I would classify this as a future game. Your big start: Ty France, J.P. Crawford, Luis Torrens, Jared Kelenic, Julio Rodriguez, Matt Brash, Abraham Toro.
The Padres trades really showed up in this game.
Andres Munoz,
Andres Munoz had another good inning.
We'll just call this the AJ Preller game, and thank AJ Preller for this win. Much appreciated.
So Matt Brash, you just mentioned him. Obviously, he was in one of those Preller trades. He was not fantastic in this game. That's to put it nicely.
That's very nice of you to say it that way.
He, let's say 30 control.
That's
what he was operating.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what he was.
And really
maybe
because of the 25 control. Really. Yeah. The 5th inning maybe bumps it up to a 30 or a 35. Maybe.
Yeah. It was.
It wasn't good. Let's just call it what it was.
Yeah. Let's say effectively wild, maybe, because he did induce a ton of double plays.
4 in a row.
Yep, and that's really the only reason that he stayed in that game, and the Mariners ended up only giving up 2 runs on a 2-run shot by Michael Brantley. Yeah, all the damage was done in one swing of the bat, surprisingly, somehow, considering the fact that Brash walked 6 in this game, was visibly amped, and also hit a batter as well.
Yeah.
He did strike out 5, did calm down a little bit in the 5th inning.
Look good in the 5th, sure.
But then the 6th, he needed to be taken out. Fortunately, at that point, the Mariners pretty much had the game in hand. it was 6-2 when they took him out. He had given up the Brantley home run. I think he walked another guy or gave up a single or something. And then they yanked him. I was pretty surprised with how Scott Service used his bullpen in this game, by the way. Paul Sewald was the first guy to come out of the pen in the sixth inning. Instead of, Munoz, instead of second rider, instead of, really, I didn't expect to see Sewald in that situation, but I'm glad that he did that. I think that was good to, look, the Astros are kind of mounting a little bit of momentum here. Let's just nip that in the bud right now. Let's go with the sure thing. Let's go with Sewald. Let's shut it down. And let's just get through this inning and move forward. And then second rider Munoz and Castillo, they shut down the Astros the rest of the way. No issues there whatsoever. Nothing got interesting. It was great. The Mariners actually had like a very calm, uninteresting, normal, just a couple of nice. The first game was a blowout. I don't know if you consider 5 runs a blowout for the 7-2, but considering the way that the Astros were swinging the bat this whole series, kind of felt like a blowout.
Yeah.
Because
they put up 7 runs in 3 games. 3 of those came on a Maldonado home run, or 2 of those came on a Maldonado home run. The Astros are a team that's slumping at the plate right now. Altuve was garbage this series. Bregman was awful. Tucker was awful. Gurriel hasn't gotten it going yet. Pretty much it was Jeremy Pena. It's kind of the guy.
Yeah.
So what? So obviously, again, the Astros, when you play them in May, they'll probably be better. They'll be a tougher task. But we also need to understand that the Mariners, the Mariners didn't have Mitch Haniger for the last 2 games either. Jesse Winker isn't exactly lighting the world on fire right now. Suarez hasn't found his stride yet. Kelnick hasn't found his stride. Toro hasn't. Rodriguez. It's not like the Mariners are just like clicking on all cylinders right now. Right. And by the way, the Mariners didn't get to use their 2 best pitchers. The Astros got to use their best.
Yeah.
So are the Astros? Do I still think the Astros are better than the Mariners? Yeah, on paper, sure. But I think what this series proves is that the gap has closed somewhat considerably. And that's a great sign for the long-term battle between these 2 teams. And they're going to play each other 16 more times, and I expect there to be some fireworks. It was awesome to hear Mariners fans so consistently boo Jose Altuve. That was impressive. Every at bat, every pitch. Yeah. Most of the times you boo the guy once, and then you're just kind of like, okay. Or maybe before the first pitch, and then okay, now we just kind of settle in. Nope.
Every time the ball went in his vicinity, there were boos. It was pretty incredible.
It really was, man. They'd stop and cheer after the strike, and then they'd boo again, and then they'd wait for the strike, and then okay, now we boo again. And so the Mariners would try to play music over, like hey, let's fire this up, make some noise, and we cheer, and then once the music stopped, the booing started again. Like it was impressive to say the least. Mariner fans can hold grudges. Who knew? Said anybody ever? Said nobody ever.
Evergreen.
Yeah. But
let's talk more about the changing of the guard potentially here, or at least maybe what this series said to us in just a moment. But real quick, a reminder: this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number 1 source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So the reason why I'm talking about the changing of the guard thing is because I saw a lot of tweets yesterday saying, look, there it is. The Mariners are better than the Astros, definitively there, right? Let's calm down, folks. Let's take a chill pill here real quick. I will say this, though. This series made me realize that I don't fear the Astros that much anymore. I really don't. Even though, they're missing Yordan Alvarez. You look at that lineup, like I said, it's still deep, but it's not what it once was. And I don't know if that's just because of the exclusion of Carlos Correa or what, or maybe it's just age. Maybe it's just time has passed. These guys are a little bit worse now. Jose Altuve specifically seems to be on a decline, right?
Yep.
Because last year was pretty good for him, but you go back to the year before, he was abysmal in 2020. Obviously 60 games, but you know, he still hasn't looked like Jose Altuve, who, you know, in his prime was an MVP candidate. He's not that guy anymore. Alex Bregman, coming off of a wrist injury last year, didn't play a ton last year, looked awful in this series. And look, you know, it's April, right? I'm not going to jump to any conclusions here. I still think the Astros are a 90-plus win baseball team, especially if they got guys like Justin Verlander at the top of the rotations pitching like the way that he did on Saturday. They're going to be fine. But I looked at that lineup yesterday. I looked at the lineup this whole weekend that the Astros are running out there at their best. And you throw in Yordan Alvarez into that mix whenever he gets healthy. I'm just not scared of them anymore. I'm really not. I feel like the Mariners have the talent necessary that when they go head-to-head with the Astros, they're going to give them a run for their money. And it used to not feel like that.
Right. Well, I mean, and you got to remember, it's not just that they lost Correa. It's that they've also lost George Springer now. They've lost Garrett Cole. Like, they've lost a major player each of the last few years. And, yeah, Altuve is 32 years old, and he's better than he showed this weekend, and he's going to hit, and he's still going to be a good player, but he's not he's not the MVP candidate. Alex Bregman, kind of overrated. Very good in his home ballpark, but the swing isn't really conducive to much else than dead pole, and he's just kind of, Kyle Tucker was great last year, but he wasn't great before last year. And is it possible that last year's an outlier? Yeah, I still think Kyle Tucker's going to hit, but yeah, it's possible still. Gurriel's another year older. Jeremy Pena's got to go through the league a couple times. The outfield isn't very good outside of Tucker. And Chas McCormick is a nice player. I like him. He's a fourth outfielder. Jake Myers, when he's healthy, he's a fourth outfielder. Jose Siri, really? That's your everyday guy? Their bullpen is mediocre at best, and they don't have the ammunition to go out and get significantly better at the deadline, not without trading from their major league roster. So could the Mariners chase down the Astros? Sure. Do I still think the Astros are going to win the division? Yeah, I do. But yeah, it's like you said, like I don't think you look at the Astros on the schedule anymore and go, boy, we could take 1 out of 3, like just kind of stay above, keep our heads above water here. That would be, don't get swept. I think now you look at it and say that's a winnable series, especially if the pitching matchups line up right. Mm-hmm. Because honestly, the Mariners don't have anything the Astros don't have anything that the Mariners can't match in their own rotation right now. You have Verlander to Ray, Framber to Gilbert, or Garcia to Gilbert. Maybe that's the difference, is Garcia or Framber, depending on which one you like more. Maybe that's the difference. But Urquidy and Odorizzi, that's nothing the Mariners don't have in the back of their rotation as well. So they have a deeper bullpen. They have at least as good of a rotation. And, the Astros have the better lineup, but it is aging, and the Mariners are kind of ascending. So, again, I still think the Astros are going to be very good. I still think they're going to win 90 games. I don't think they're a 100-win team. And I think that's why the Mariners have a shot here. And again, unlike the Astros, the Mariners have the opportunity to go get significantly better in the middle of the year. And I would expect them to take it, especially if they're playing the Astros well and we get into June, July, and they're right there in the thick of things. And based on what we've seen from the rest of the American League West, that should be the case. Anaheim, again, Shohei Ohtani hasn't pitched well in Anaheim. Mike Trout just suffered a hand injury. It doesn't seem too serious, but we'll see. Mm-hmm. And it's Anaheim. They're going to have injuries. So we'll see. We'll see how it works out for them. But yeah, the American League West definitely feels more open to anybody but Houston than it has been for the last 5 years or so. And, if nothing else, this is a series that can instill some confidence, and we'll see where it goes. But the Mariners believe that they can beat the Astros multiple times.
And I believe they can.
Yes, and I think fans are beginning to believe that the gap has never been smaller. not since the Astros started their rise. The gap has never been this small, and that's a really good sign for Seattle.
Yeah,
I'm going to guess one of these two teams is going to win the season series like 11-8 or 10-9. Like I don't think we're going to see a 13-6 division split this year. So
doesn't it kind of feel like they're almost evenly matched?
More so. I feel like the Astros are better. Like still at the end of the day, I think the Astros are better. I think if I think
they have more firepower and more name recognition, but I feel like maybe the Mariners at this point might be more well built when you add in the bonus of the bullpen, because the Astros bullpen is not good. It's not.
Yeah, it's they spent a lot of money. Well, they didn't spend a lot of money on it. They spent some resources trying to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we didn't see their best guys per se. We saw Stanek yesterday, but that's kind of just to get work in. But yeah, we saw Baez.
Is fine. You know, there's
Presley. Yeah, Presley's hurt right now too, so that's a blow. But yeah, it's Mariners bullpen certainly deeper. Like I said, the rotation is, I think, at least as good. Or if you think the Astros rotation is better, it's slightly at most.
Yeah. And
then the lineup, it comes down to the lineup, and the Astros certainly have the track record, but the Mariners have just as much upside. So yeah, like I said, I think the gap's closed, but I'm not ready to say, game, set, match. The Mariners are clearly the best team in the American League West after a weekend series.
In April.
In April, no less. Yeah. But it's a great sign, man. And like I said, it's clear as day that the gap is closed, and we'll see how these guys progress. If somebody gets better or worse, somebody gets hurt, there's a trade. Like the teams that we saw this weekend are not going to be the teams we see when this team plays each other in June, July, August, September.
Well, actually, did you know that they wrap up their season series July 31st? That
really?
Early. Yeah.
So they do not play the Astros in August or September.
Nope.
Wow.
So if they're in a pennant race, right, with the Astros, they're going to have to solely rely on other teams to handle their business.
And remember, guys, head-to-head record is the number one tiebreaker this year. There are no game 163s. So in some crazy hypothetical where the Mariners and Astros both win 92 games, whoever won the season series, whoever got the 10th win first against each other, they win the division. So keep that in mind. These head-to-head matchups carry a little more weight than they used to, because there are no more game 163s.
Yeah.
So we'll
that's
see.
That's going to end before the trade deadline, because the trade deadline
is August 3rd.
Yeah. Yeah, I got pushed up. So yeah, it's it's possible that the division could be decided upon by games that were entirely played without the final picture for either of these teams. So
it's going to be interesting. Hopefully we get there, man. That'd be great.
Yeah,
if we're having to sit here and say, oh man, I hope the Angels can beat the Astros today.
That would be nice.
I
would love to really scoreboard watch for the sake of the division rather than a wild card. That would be
the scoreboard watch all of August and September.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. That'd be sweet. And we're gonna be doing a lot of that. I would presume on here. We're gonna be doing some scoreboard watching. Not right now, not for a few more months. We are very much
July 1st.
Yeah. We I do not care what happens around the league. When I was in Toronto for the Blue Jays Rangers game, I was talking about how I didn't like that the Blue Jays were winning, because I'm just a Blue Jays hater. And I got Corbin Smith of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, who is a Blue Jays fan, responded to me. He's like, "What? Why would you want the Rangers to win? Don't you want the Rangers to lose because of the division?" I don't care. And also, the Rangers suck. So the Mariners don't have to worry about the Rangers. But also, I do not care what happens around the league in early April. I really don't. Neither do you. It's a long, long season. There's still 152 games to be played from the Mariners alone right now. So we got a lot of time. There are no priors to be confirmed in any short order. There's a lot of time for a lot of stuff to happen. And it's not time to say that the Mariners have crowned themselves AL West champions either. The Astros are going to be fine. They're going to be very tough. But the Mariners got off to a strong start here this weekend and hopefully are now on the right track with the Rangers and Royals coming to town tomorrow. The Rangers are coming to town tomorrow, and then they're going to wrap up this homestand with the Royals. Couple of favorable, winnable matchups, but certainly a couple of matchups that are going to be difficult for the Mariners as well. They certainly pose their unique challenges. We'll get you ready for the Rangers series on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Mariners, but for now, that's going to do it for our show today. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Titan Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's DANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. And thank you again for making us your first listen of the day, just like you do here every day. Now make your second listen of the day Locked On MLB. That's where Paul Francis Sullivan, and please call him Sully, brings you his unique perspective on the Major League's present and past. It's free wherever you get your podcasts, just like us. So have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we will see you tomorrow. Go M's.